Howdy, this is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Monday, January 19th, 2026, and I wish you a very, very, very happy, good memory day. Well, Ohio State basketball has some momentum here after a win over UCLA on Saturday. The Buckeyes have a quick turnaround here against Minnesota, so today we will preview that game in its entirety. We'll break down the biggest matchups, biggest players in this game, and I will give you a prediction by the time this episode is over as well. I hope your week gets off to a great start. Let's make your week even better. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Explain it to me like I'm 5 right now why my printer is making noises when I haven't touched that thing in 2 weeks. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Like the video right now if you're watching on YouTube, please. I would highly, highly appreciate that. Make sure you're following on all the socials. We've had a lot of action there, especially on Twitter. Follow on Instagram as well. Subscribe on YouTube. Give a 5-star review as well wherever you get your podcast. That's very, very helpful. Cannot let the Nut House win. And I don't think I need to be any more specific than that. Last but not least, the Substack. Views from the Shop. Substack.com. You hear me talk about it all the time. A lot of good stuff there, especially in the chat. That's as specific as I'd like to be. So if you'd like to up your knowledge on Ohio State hoops at this time, you're curious about what's going to happen with Puff Johnson, well, I would recommend that maybe you check out the chat. So get there. There's always a link in the description of every episode, so make sure you get there as well if that's something that you're open to. Let's get off to a great start this week by talking about Ohio State basketball. So, a preview here for Ohio State taking on Minnesota. The Buckeyes, again, come off a big win against UCLA. They're facing a team that is highly, highly desperate at this point in the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Right now, sitting at 10-8 and 3-4 in the Big Ten. Right now, they are on a 3-game losing streak. They lost to Illinois on Saturday. That game, I think, started an hour before the Ohio State game, so I got a chance to catch some of that, watch the end of that game and a couple other Minnesota games as well as I got prepped for this episode, so you are as informed as possible. The tale of the season for Minnesota so far has been kind of just coming up short against Illinois. They were tied at halftime. Minnesota really gave the Fighting Illini a fight, and then Illinois scored 11 of the final 16 points to pull away and finally win against Minnesota. Against Wisconsin, the game before, with just under 4 minutes left, they trailed by 9. They end up losing the game by 3 points. That comeback attempt comes up just short. And to start this 3-game losing streak against USC, they lost that game in overtime. Yet again, Minnesota comes up short. Now, the resume so far, 10-8, 3-4 in the Big Ten. Obviously, it's not great. The metrics don't love them. They did beat Iowa. That's a great win. They also beat Indiana. Both of those wins, however, did come at home. The only road win they have this year, much like Ohio State, they beat Northwestern in Evanston. But Ohio State obviously has some other road victories in this one. Overall, right now, Minnesota 87th in the net, 84th in Ken Palm. And Bart Torvik, Bart, are you with us? Kind of drunk on Minnesota? 58th in Bart Torvik compared to being in the 80s in the net and Ken Palm. So Bart loves some Minnesota Golden Gophers action in his life, apparently rated pretty highly there. Of course, under first-year head coach Niko Medved, who comes from Colorado State. And we'll talk about the pace, what he's done here at Minnesota so far. This roster, by the way, it does sport a couple of portal targets Ohio State had its eyes on over the past transfer portal cycle. Cade Tyson, I don't remember if he visited Ohio State or not, comes in from North Carolina, now at Minnesota. Bobby Durkin, I believe, visited Ohio State. I didn't go back and check. I don't remember. He comes in from Davidson. Both those players are ones that Ohio State reached out to and recruited a little bit during the portal window. They both end up at Minnesota. This program at large, just trying to get back to the good old days. That's where they stand right now. That's the Golden Gophers. So let's get into their offense here. Thanks again for being here today. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great Monday. Or if you're listening on Tuesday, I hope your Monday was great and your Tuesday is just off to a smashing start. So Minnesota's offense is averaging 72.8 points per game. It makes it hard to win a lot of games when you score that little points. 113.3 offensive rating. They make 45.8% of their shots from the field, and 33.1% of their shots from the three-point line go in. So not a great three-point shooting team. They're 109th in adjusted offensive efficiency. That number comes from KenPom. Now, these numbers a little bit deceiving as you look at just the sheer scoring volume. That's why that offensive rating is a little bit better than the points per game. It's because they play at a true snail's pace. If there's a snail chasing after a Golden Gopher, that Golden Gopher is going to move just a little bit. Not that far, but just a little bit to stay away from that snail before it can kill him. 62.9 pace. That's second percentile in college basketball this year. Slower than what Medved has done as a head coach over at Colorado State. We'll talk about maybe why that happens. Only 53.8 field goal attempts per game. That's fifth percentile. They score less than 10 fast break points per game. And the defense thus far in wins, obviously, it allows them to play at this pace. But if a team like Ohio State can get out to a lead like it did against UCLA, I said that I think at the preview show for that game. Buckeyes, if you can get out to a big lead against UCLA, just based on UCLA's style, you're going to have a chance to win the game. Here against Minnesota, it's the exact same. So let's actually talk about the Minnesota. Why are they playing even slower than we've ever seen under Medved? Well, 11.2 bench points per game. That's second percentile in college basketball. Even worse than Ohio State's bench production, which is at 12.9 bench points per game. As you look at point distribution, it's Cade Tyson, Isaac Asuma, Langston Reynolds, Jalen Crocker-Jones, and a little bit of Bobby Durkin. Those are your five starters. You think Ohio State is thin, just take a look at Minnesota's roster. You will walk away saying, you know what? Maybe it's not that bad in Columbus. In 5 games of 2026 for Minnesota, 7 players have made it onto the floor 100% of the time. Just 7. Minnesota isn't even 8 deep. They play 7 players, which means 2 come off the bench. That's it. That's it. For Ohio State, even without Brandon Knoll, Jake Diebler will get Gabe Cupps, Ivan Nagovin, Tayson Chapman, Colin White. They get in the game on just about every occasion at this point. For Minnesota, 4 of their 5 starters average 30 minutes per game or more. Bobby Durkin right below that threshold at 28 minutes per game. 4 players for Minnesota are out as of now, 2 of which played real minutes for them. So Minnesota really struggling with injuries. You want to talk about why are they playing so slow? Well, it's because they are incredibly, incredibly thin right now. Ball movement, however, is really good for Minnesota. So they are number 1 in the NCAA in assist rate. 74.7% of field goals come with an assist. Brings a tear to the eye of Elijah Hawkins, who's probably playing somewhere in like Mesopotamia or something. Isaac Asuma, he leads the team, 4.3 assists per game. Langston Reynolds right behind at 4.2 assists per game. I believe he's a Western Michigan or Central Michigan transfer. Don't quote me on that. Overall, as a team, they average 18.4 assists per game. These players are ready to catch and shoot in this offense. Their three-point attempt rate is 73rd percentile in the nation, and a lot of their attempts come quickly. Players stay in that shooter's position, ready to catch and let it fly right off the hip. That's how they play, and that's how they get a lot of three-pointers up for Minnesota, and that leads to assists. So good ball movement. They'll work the pick and roll as well. They want a space. Let's talk about some players here for the Golden Gophers. Cade Tyson, 6'7" forward. He's getting Bruce Thornton minutes. You think I'm exaggerating? No, he's literally getting the exact amount of minutes as Bruce Thornton right now at 36.4 minutes per game. He's been exceptional for Minnesota overall this year, 20.8 points per game, 2.7 assists per game, shooting over 50% from the field, and 39.1 from the three-point line. He does a great job getting the free throw line as well. Not quite as good as Hannes Steinbach over there at Washington, but 7.9 free throw attempts per game. That's 99th percentile in college basketball so far this year, and he shoots at 80% from the free throw line this season. He's very, very good when he's able to get to the rim, but he's going to shoot from everywhere. So this is a guy that you got to keep your eye on the most. Reminds me a little bit of Nick Martinelli at Northwestern, where it just feels like there's not a lot of help. Kind of similar in terms of size, similar in terms of play style, and very similar in terms of scoring volume. And obviously Ohio State has seen Nick Martinelli so far this year. Isaac Asuma, the second player I'll mention here, 6'3", sophomore guard. Modest 10.5 points per game, but he shows up really to share the ball, 4.3 assists per game. I already mentioned that. He does struggle a bit with turnovers. He had 2 against Illinois, none against Wisconsin, then had 2 and 3 against USC and Iowa respectively. He will try to light it up from 3. He'll give it his best shot. He takes nearly 5.5 3-point attempts per game. He went 3 of 8 against Illinois, not horrible whatsoever. 2 of 5 against Wisconsin, 4 of 7 against Northwestern, but you got some ugly mix in there as well. 1 of 10 against Fairleigh Dickinson, 0 of 5 against Iowa. So there's some bad in there, but it doesn't stop him from trying to shoot it from deep. So if you get him on a cold night, that's great. If you get him on a hot night, not so good. Probably Bruce Thornton's assignment here, I would guess, most of the time when he's manned up or when Ohio State is manned up. So he's a player to watch. Langston Reynolds, a 6'4 junior. He made his way into the starting lineup later into the year. Double figures in 6 of his last 7 games. He's up to 10.7 points per game. That number continues to rise with more minutes. 4.2 assists per game. Really good job shooting inside, and that's quite frankly all he wants to do. 62% on 2-point attempts so far this year. He pretty much exclusively shoots at the rim, with 68% of his field goal attempts coming from the rim. Only 16% of his field goal attempts this year have come outside the paint. Probably going to get some John Mobley Jr. on him. You're going to be okay sagging off on Langston Reynolds. You're going to have to wall up and be able to guard him there at the rim, and probably help a little bit on him as well. Jalen Crocker Johnson, he's a 6'8 junior forward. He's coming off 2 big games, really, really good in that game against Illinois. 22 points against the Fighting Illini, 20 points a game before that against the Badgers of Wisconsin. He was 5 of 12 from deep against Illinois. Just catch and shoot, repeat. Catch and shoot, repeat. He will find his way to the paint, kind of similar to Devin Royal in that regard, but overall 13.6 points per game. He's a good 3-point shooter. He'll draw you out to the 3-point line. And this is an offense overall that's very moldable, very versatile. It's another team that takes that modern approach to college basketball, where you've got guys with size at 6'7 and 6'8 who will take shots from deep. That allows you to have open shots in the paint and at the rim at times, because you just have better spacing. And again, they work the pick and roll game pretty well as well. So they've got guys who can score it for sure. It's just the pace is so low that some of that production is limited. There's a bit of a ceiling on it. Now, defensively for Minnesota, 67.3 points per game allowed. That's very good. How good is it, you ask? Well, I'd like to check where that ranks just in terms of the Big Ten this season. So please hold as I pull that up for a second here. Points per game, I want allowed, not scored. Are you going to be mad at me if I wait a little bit? Here we go. This is good. Minnesota is 4th in the Big Ten in points per game allowed, and yet their point differential is 5th. Fifth worst in the Big Ten this year. So defensively, really good. Just can't score, which hurts you. 104 defensive rating. That's really good. 42.1% of field goals go in against the Golden Gophers. 33.9% are offenses from behind the 3-point line, and they're 68th in adjusted defensive efficiency from KenPom. Now, trigger warning here, okay? They're going to zone you. They're going to play this 2-3 extended zone that Ohio State fans, they're pretty used to seeing at this point. They do have a bit of a propensity to get beat in the short corner and then in that dunker spot. They may run it, though, for the exact same reason as Ohio State, and that's just to keep guys fresh. When you only play 7 players, that 2-3 zone allows you to run a little bit less, burn a couple less calories, take less steps. All that stuff is tracked, right? And if you can take just a few less steps every possession, that adds up. And I think that's probably why Minnesota does run a little bit more 2-3 zone this year. It does contribute a little bit to a higher 3-point attempt rate at 41.2% this season, but teams aren't special from 3 against the Golden Gophers so far this year. Overall, this defense, it feels very connected, and they will suffocate you outside of those traditional scoring chances in the half court. They're 98th percentile in fast break points allowed. They're 91st percentile in paint points allowed. They're 98th percentile in second chance points allowed. So in those unique opportunities where you're running out in transition and you have the opportunity to score, Minnesota's going to stop you. And the unique opportunities where you got a chance to get a shot up after getting an offensive rebound, Minnesota's going to stop you. They're really, really good there outside of those traditional half-court scoring opportunities. Really good on the defensive glass as well, which allows them to limit extra shots. You look at Crocker Johnson, Tyson, they're really, really good there. And they will look to turn you over a little bit. Extended zone, I think that helps a little bit here. They look to jump the passing lanes. Asuma, he produces here 11.1% steal rate. That's really solid. Not great, but it's solid. They forced 16 turnovers against USC, 14 against Iowa. I think just 10 against Illinois. So this number kind of goes up and down, but they will look to steal some passes here and there and lead to points quickly in transition on the other end and easy buckets. Overall, like I said, they're willing to give up the three, as I mentioned, and also only 27.6% of shots come from the rim. 17.8% of shots come in the paint, both of which are lower than NCAA average so far this year. They're also not the biggest team, at least according to Ken Pom. In terms of average height, they sit at 106 so far this year. Ohio State, if you're curious about where they are in average height right now, they sit at 100. So obviously the Buckeyes, not the biggest team either. If Nagovin starts to get some more minutes here down the stretch, I think that's where that number will obviously go up when he stands at 7.2 or 7.3, whatever the case may be. Without Brandon Knoll, that number probably goes down. Maybe it doesn't change at all. I don't know. But at this point, Ohio State, not the biggest team either. But overall, when you look at Minnesota, offensively, not great. They have some guys who can score, but they're just so thin, and they'll run into some lulls, which really helps or really hurts them. Defensively, they're really good, but again, they're thin. So if you're able to hit some shots and you're able to get up on them, that defense, it doesn't really matter at that point because you got to go back and you got to play offense. So keys to this game for Ohio State. I hate to say it, I really do, but I only have one key to the game for the Buckeyes. I look back at how Ohio State played against UCLA, where they got up early, like I asked them to do. Go out and play fast, dominate your pace, your tempo early, because UCLA, they want a slugfest. They want a rock fight. They want a shiv here and a poke there. And before long, you realize, I think my liver is falling out of my body. And now you've lost the game because of that. That's similar to what Minnesota would like to see happen in this game. Ohio State is a home team, by the way. Defense travels. That's not cliche. I've had actually people from both of the coaching administrations that have been in Ohio State since I've had this show say the exact same thing. So I'm going to assume that everyone believes that defense does travel. So defense travels for Minnesota. That's great. Does offense? I don't know. I think for Ohio State in this one, the number one key to the game and the only key to the game I have for the Buckeyes is you've got to let the horses run. Get these young men some caffeine, some smelling salts, and then just shove them into straitjackets. Every single person on the team. I mean, maybe not like Braylon Nash, but, and obviously not Miles Harrow, but for the most part, these guys who are going to play, I mean, just get them jazzed up out of their mind. Get them some like heavy metal music, some noise canceling headphones, nearly torture them. That's fine. They got to get the zoomies, and then about 2 minutes before the game, get them out of there, unleash them, let them go. I think that in this game, if you can get out to a lead early and force a team that's somehow thinner than even you are, you get them to play from behind, you've got a great shot to win this game at that point. They don't want to play fast. Their bench doesn't play and doesn't score. Go, Bruce. Be free. Jonathan Mobley Jr., please take the threes whenever you like. You went 6 of 12 the last game. Stay hot. Devin, hey, don't be afraid. You were 3 of 3 the last game. Go hit some threes. Amari, I think if Amari were to get straitjacketed and the smelling salts and you give him a couple of Red Bulls, he may just spontaneously combust. I don't think he can handle keeping that energy internalized. So maybe we don't need to do it to Amari. For the rest of the team, sure. But go get after it, Amari. Look, you love those dunking attempts. You got to finish them. That would be great if you could finish a couple more of those per game. But go get after it, Amari. Ride the momentum from the win that you picked up against UCLA into this one. I think if Ohio State can do that and they can get out to a lead in this one, it makes me feel like at halftime, if you're up 36-29, it's hard to see Minnesota having the ability to get back into this game based on the talent disparity, based on how strong Ohio State has been offensively when they're really good. And you've seen them against Oregon. You've now seen them against UCLA where they've gotten some leads in games and they've kept them. So I think Ohio State may have the ability to do that in this one. On Puff Johnson, just a note on that. No, he's not going to play in this game. That's not really breaking news, I don't think. But Puff Johnson won't play in this game. I don't know when he's going to practice. I've shared a lot more intel on that specifically in the Substack. So if you're curious about that, Views from the Shot podcast.substack.com. Go click on chat in the top. You can sign up there. If you don't want to pay for a free week, or if you don't want to pay for a week and you want a free trial first, then reach out to me and I'll give you a free trial. Not only that, do you get intel on what's going on with Puff Johnson, but you can also go up. Once you get access, you can scroll up. You see all the messages from the beginning of time and see, hey, this guy's actually not wrong. Maybe sometimes, maybe there may be a message in there where I was wrong, but anything I post in there in general kind of hits. So just be advised. But I don't expect Ohio State to have Puff Johnson in this one. I don't think anyone does. Again, I don't know when he's going to practice or anything like that. But against Minnesota, I think Ohio State will be without Puff Johnson. So what does the BIP say about this game? Well, I was actually surprised. This is a pretty big number. The BIP favors Ohio State by 8 in this game. I assume the spread comes out 8.5, 7.5, something like that. The total at 142 points. This idiot, by the way, if you're listening on podcast, I'm pointing at myself. You actually can't even see it on YouTube, but I was pointing at myself. This idiot right here, he said, you know what? I haven't placed any money on Ohio State basketball this entire season. I've really kind of shut down the betting. It's just, I think, you know what? I think it's pretty hard to win in sports betting. So I pretty much shut it down. And not that I think there's necessarily anything wrong with it. I think it's pretty problematic. You know what? Shut it. We're not going down that road right now. But all that to say, I decided, you know what? I don't think a lot of points are going to be scored in this Ohio State against UCLA game. The way that these two teams profile, the emphasis on defense from UCLA, look at how this game went last year between Ohio State and UCLA. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm taking the under. I'm placing money on the under. My first time placing money on Ohio State basketball game this entire year. Crash and burned. I don't think it was close. Actually, I know it wasn't close. It was stupid. It was a lapse in judgment, and I'm upset with myself. So that's all I can say about that. I'm not placing money on this game. However, in terms of a prediction for this game, this Ohio State is not in must-win territory. Luckily, actually, with some wins they picked up here against Oregon, at Oregon especially, and UCLA, they're not in must-win territory. The season is 31 games long. I don't know why people look at these games as if they're in a vacuum, or these stretches as if they're in a vacuum, and say, well, this is a must-win against Minnesota, or UCLA and Minnesota are must-win games because you're not going to beat Michigan. Okay? And Ohio State still has, 12 more games after that to improve their resume? So, no, I don't think this is a must-win game against Minnesota, but it is a can't lose. Ohio State's a better team. Ohio State's going to be favored pretty heavily. Probably the heaviest favorite game that they're going to have for the Buckeyes this year, other than when they play Penn State at home, would be my guess. The Maryland game will be on the road, so I don't think they'll be favored as much, even though Maryland's been pretty dang bad this year. You get a home game against Wisconsin. You get a tough home game against Purdue. I mean, home game against Indiana. None of those games are going to be as bad or none of those teams will be as bad as Minnesota. So this is a game that Ohio State just can't lose. You got to win this game, sweep it on the rug, and move on. Right now, the Buckeyes, as of time recording, 37th in the net. As we look at their resume right now, it continues to strengthen. With that win over UCLA, they're now starting to pick up some wins here where, again, right now, they're on the inside of the bubble. They're on the right side of the bubble. I don't care what the bracket matrix says. I would assume it says Ohio State is in. Even if it doesn't, Ohio State resume right now, they're in the NCAA tournament. Win this game. You cannot afford to lose this game. By the way, Minnesota in the net. Let me confirm if this is going to be a quad 1 or a quad 2 or a quad 3 game. So give me just a second here. It can be hard to remember. So Minnesota in the net right now is 87th. This will be a home game. This is going to be a quad 3 game for Ohio State. So again, it's not necessarily must win. Now that this is quad 3 and not even quad 2, it gets a lot closer to must win. Buckeyes can't afford to lose this game. You need to stay spotless, and quad 3 and quad 4 take care of business in this one. I think Ohio State will. That's your game preview. This one was a little quick. I don't know why. Did I talk faster? Did I give less detail? I don't know. But you know what? I think with the extra time that you have, now that this episode is pretty much over, I would recommend you give a 5-star review. Whether it be on Apple or Spotify or somewhere else, that's up to you. But I would recommend a 5-star review on the Views from the Shop podcast if you don't mind. So Buckeyes will play tomorrow here against the Golden Gophers. We'll be back Wednesday morning to recap the game that happens in Columbus. Buckeyes taking on Minnesota, a game that they're going to be expected to win, but we don't play these games on paper. We play them on the hardwood. So we'll see what happens. I'll be back to recap this show. By the way, I don't know if you saw this tweet. Would have been late Saturday night. Got a nice little DM from someone who is very important, and that's as specific as I'd like to be. No, it wasn't head coach Jake Deaver, so no, not him. But got a DM who said, hey, you and Adam Jardy are the only people covering Ohio State basketball in like a real way. Thanks for that. Appreciate you guys. I tweeted it out. Go out. It's real. And some could come back and say, he's probably a fake message. I'm not that crazy. And if you think I am that crazy, then I think you're crazy, and I ask you don't listen to the show. And you know what? No, we can shake hands and part ways as friends. We can disagree. I'm not that crazy. That was real. So we do an okay job here covering the Ohio State University Buckeyes. We will be back on Wednesday to recap Ohio State against Minnesota and then get ready for a big one in Ann Arbor. Until next time, I shut up before you shut me off. Thanks for listening to today's show. Go Bucks.